everybody. Welcome to the Snow West Show. I'm your host, Ryan Harris. We're going to jump into the show here real quick with Kris Smasher Kaltenbacher talking about racing the Iron Dog the last couple of years and upcoming this year too. But before we do that, I want to thank our sponsors for the show. The Snow West Show is made possible thanks to Perils snowmobiles. Perils is offering up to $3,000 off select mountain sleds, 2023 models, available in dealerships. In addition, Perils is offering a free GoPro Hero 12 Black edition to anyone who purchases any Perils snowmobile during the month of October only. So that's your 23s, your 24s, your 25s. You can get deals on carryovers. You can go work out something on your 25. For the month of October, though, if you buy a new Perils snowmobile, you get a free GoPro Hero 12 Black edition. Also, a quick shout out, our local Perils dealership, Action Motorsports, here in Idaho Falls, Idaho. Dan Adams is coming this Saturday to do an avalanche seminar. If you're anywhere in the area, swing on over to Idaho Falls, Idaho, Action Motorsports on Lincoln Road. Listen to Dan. Dan is phenomenal with the avalanche education. Lots of other activities going on the whole day at the dealership as well. Go check out the Pro RMK KS models at your local Polaris dealer or at Polaris.com. Also sponsoring the show is 320 Guest Ranch, located in Big Sky, Montana, only 5 minutes away from riding areas like Buck Ridge and Carrot Basin. 320 Guest Ranch offers lodging and accommodations for your next snowmobiling trip. I've got single cabins, large full cabins. They have kitchens in these things. 320 Guest Ranch is a great place to sign up to go sledding. Check it out at 320ranch.com. And joining the show for this year, Fly Racing. Happy to have Fly Racing Snow on board. Fly Racing is the number one gear brand in Supercross and Motocross. They're bringing all of that heat to snowmobiling. So they got monosuits, helmets, boots, gloves, goggles. Fly Racing has you covered head to toe for all your snowmobiling needs. Check them out at flyracing.com or Fly Racing Snow on socials. All right, on to the show with Kris Smasher Kaltenbacher. All right, we're going to jump into a little Iron Dog talk. Smasher, Kris Kaltenbacher. I don't know if anybody knows you by Kris.
They don't.
Everybody knows you by Smasher or the beard. the great beard. So just real briefly, like Boondocker Films, Dan Gardner, like you were part of that brand for decades.
15 years.
Decade and a
16,
half.
yeah.
Like and such a cool iconic brand. I mean, and so many fun stories from that.
Yes.
But what we're here to talk about is you've switched into this racing mode. Like 10 years ago, you asked me who's going to be the guy that's up to his neck in Iron Dog racing. I would never have guessed you. But here you are, man. And broken wrist and all. Broken arm.
Thanks to Keith Curtis and Mason.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So talk to us about what got you into racing Iron Dog. I mean, you are a backcountry mountain rider, deep snow guy, and now you're going into your third year of Iron Dog.
Well, growing up in Alaska, I always followed the Iron Dog. There was some people from my hometown that did the Iron Dog. Todd Palin, his family lived out there, so I followed him and his brother, and they did it. And I'd always just kind of wanted to do it, and then it just fell in my lap. Dustin from Klein knew I wanted to ride and run it, so I got into the ambassador with Roger Brown. He called me and asked me to be an ambassador, and then that's what triggered. That's when I got hooked. Like, I got hooked big time.
Because Dustin went out and pre-ran the course, right?
Yeah, it was me and Dustin, Roger Brown, Mike Buck, and then two Polaris engineers our first year. And then we were supposed to finish at Nome, and then they needed many more miles on the new four-strokes. So Roger asked me if I wanted to do the whole loop, and I said sure. And then Chris Olds jumped in with us, which was a great surprise because him and Mike had scratched. And Chris was in Nome, so he jumped in with us to lead us back, and that ended up being a story within itself. Like, that's a whole different.
So just talk about like what the Iron Dog event is for the. I mean, I would say most everybody that is a snowmobiler has heard of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody knows necessarily what it is. Like, what's the format? Where's it at? What do you ride on? What's the terrain like? What are you racing?
So it's 2,500 miles. And it goes from Big Lake to Nome back. You go through McGrath, and then you go through Unalakleet, and then you go through Koyuk, Buckland, Selawik, and you go all the way up to Kotzebue, and then from Kotzebue around to Nome, and then from Nome, you go all the way back to Unalakleet, and then, Ruby, Portman, Ophir, McGrath to Whiskey Bravo, back to Big Lake is the finish. The terrain goes anywhere from deep snow to you can't see 30 feet in front of you because the wind's blowing 50 miles an hour. It's flat as can be. You get some tusket heads, which are just tundra heads, they call them, or like a little tundra that's sticking out of the ground, out of the snow, because the snow isn't very deep and it's frozen. You get water crossings, you get ocean crossings, you get creek crossings, river crossings. The South Fork of the Iron Dog is probably my least favorite. I think it's the scariest. You get hollow ice. I've heard of people following these hollow ice patches and getting hurt. I saw one sled sink last year, 200 miles from the finish. Watched a guy go out and sink it, and to see him gasping for air because it was so cold to swim out of the river, that brought tears to my eyes. That really broke my heart.
Well, you sent me some pictures, and then you were telling the story last year about just pitch black dark, and then all of a sudden you're on water.
That was our ambassador year. Yeah, I was following Kris was in the lead. I was second. I think Roger Brown was next, and then the two engineers for Perils were going along. It was about 6 a.m. in the morning, just past White Mountain, going over Gullivan Bay. And when the wind blows, it'll push the sea ice up into the bay, and it'll just go over the normal ice. But you never know how deep it is with the overflow. So we're going. It was white. Next thing I know, it went pitch black, which meant you were on water. And we were going, and I just saw headlights disappearing. And then I just watched Kris Olds as he was going. He just did the old Titanic, and bloop. And I went right by him, kept going. Had no idea what to do. Kind of freaked me out. I didn't know if they were drowning. I didn't know anything. Found a patch of snow, stopped on that. Yelled for him, and Kris Olds comes walking out of the water like nothing. Hey, what are you doing? Just came walking right out. And it was about knee deep. But the other 4 sleds, all 4 of them, we sunk all 4 of them. And Gullivan had to go back into White Mountain and get help from the villagers. And
okay, how do you do that? If you sunk all 4 sleds, how are you going back to get
So I water skipped back across it all. Roger and the 2 players and Kris and the 2 players and engineers, they walked out of the water. By then, Nick and Tyler Ackelstead were coming. When they got to us, because the pros were coming, we were just the ambassadors. And when they saw us, Roger Brown said, "Hey, we need help. We're in danger." So they stopped the clock. I think Roger said, "You're off the clock at 7:14." He was the witness. We were all witness. So we put people on their sleds. We got 3 on my sled, and we rode back to White Mountain. Dropped us off at a house, and the villagers took us in, let us dry all our gear because they were soaked. And then they went out and helped us. We got 300 feet of rope, walking in the water, pulling sleds for a half a mile through slushy water. I ended up tripping and falling in the water because the ice isn't smooth underneath. You get clumps. Tripped over one, fell in the water. I got soaked. Tried to tough it out for a while. After about an hour, I told Roger, "Hey, I can't take it anymore." By the time I got to the village, the house that we were staying at, I couldn't get my boots off. My feet were so cold. I was freezing. And then the wife came in and helped me get my boots off, and we eventually got the sleds out, got them going again. And Kris Olds said, 4:30 in the morning tomorrow morning, we're on our way.
And you just get up the next morning and just keep racing.
Yeah, we were just the ambassadors, and so we had to finish. We had to keep going. We couldn't stop, and so it was crazy. I think we did 21 hours of riding, 21 hours straight to get. No, it wasn't 21. I'm sorry. We left. I can't remember. It was like 19 or 20 hours to get to our next checkpoint, which was McGrath.
And are you stopping to eat, get a drink, anything?
We left White Mountain. Oh, we left White Mountain. We got to Unalakleet. We stayed the night in Unalakleet. We went from Unalakleet to McGrath, and it was miserable. It was so long. The trail was beat up. You had how many sleds had gone through. 150 sleds with the ambassadors and with the trail class, and then the pros. So it was just beat to heck. And what did we eat? I found a piece of cheese, like a round cheese at Poor Man in a tote, and I ate that. And I had some coffee beans, some chocolate-covered coffee beans, and I would eat those. By the time we got to one of the last checkpoints, I think I had eaten 3 bags of peanut M&Ms, 3 bowls of pasta, 4 Gatorades, 5 glasses of water, and 3 Snickerdoodle cookies. I was starving, famished.
So that's your experience the first year as
That's
an
my
ambassador,
first year.
and you leave that and you're like, hey, I want to do that again.
It was just so exhilarating that you could put your body and your mind, and you just can't quit. I mean, if you were to quit, the amount of money and time and effort to get your sled and get everything out of there, it's gonna cost you a fortune. And I just thought it was cool that you push your body that hard. Like how hard, how mentally strong are you? And that's what I found very interesting, intriguing about it. And I look at someone like Chris Olds, Todd Palin, some of these other guys that I've known that have done it, and they've done it 28 times, 25 times, 4-time champs. That's incredible. Like that's a stud to me.
Oh, absolutely. So last summer, this time last year, you had put together all the plans to go do it again.
Mm-hmm.
How did that work? How was your first year racing as a full on racer?
It was a lot. It was a ton of work, way more work than I had any idea. Thanks to Todd Palin letting me stay at his house and showing me the path and helping me get my sled together. Man, that guy just went above and beyond to help my dream come true. And then before that, I had met Eric Christensen through Dustin and basically begged him to be my partner. Like I needed a partner. I was looking for a partner and got him, and then found a sled, bought the sled. And I took, I think I spent about 100 hours building the sled with Eric and with Todd. And I think I made 5 or 6 trips to Alaska to build it. Got it built, and got everything together, got the sponsors, got all my sponsors behind me, and got ready to race.
So what kind of special setup does it take to get a sled ready for Iron Dog? Wheels? I'm assuming you're running all sorts of wheels in the skid.
It pretty much comes with all your wheels, but then you need to take the pros disassemble everything. I mean, they go through it 100%. They rebuild the whole sled, but we just recalk the whole entire tunnel, make sure that there's no gap. Like, and when I say caulk it, I meant you were just putting globs amount of clear caulking everywhere. You don't want any holes whatsoever. Skid plate on, different stator to run your GPS, your auxiliary lights. You have to run better lights. You got to mount the GPS, stud the track, and then we went through the whole rear skid, Loctited everything, and then you put lines like a marker pin through all the bolts so that you can do a quick check when you're at checkpoints just to make sure that the bolts aren't coming loose. You put guides on the rear upper end, like the fins. I can't remember what they call them, but it's just to keep the track in line. Gauntlets, bigger windshield, bracing up on the footwells, stuff like that. I mean, that's pretty much, and studding the track's a pain.
And you have to run a 600?
Yeah, you can't run anything more than a 600.
So you're starting out on a cross-country race sled.
Yep.
Yeah. So now we're going into the 2024-25 season, and this is your third year running it, second year as a pro. How did you finish last year, by the way?
14th out of 25. We made some serious mistakes. Learned a lot.
You say that like it's a bad thing, though. 14th out of 25, like your first year in as a pro. Like,
truth be told, my attitude was kind of crappy when we got to Nome. And Ryan and Chris Olds, Ryan Sassanoni and Chris Olds, Chris Olds has become one of my good friends. They met me as I was coming into Nome, which you're halfway. Like, that just feels so good. And he actually hugged me and said, you need to regroup your attitude. You made it halfway. You were halfway done with the Iron Dog. And when he said that, it really triggered. Like, you know what? I'm right. And he's like, all you need to do is finish. Your first year, finish the race. You need your vet status. And most of the top teams said that. All you need to do is finish. Doesn't matter where you finish. And so there was one other team, the Perils, and I'm running with his son this year. We kind of had a $20 bet to see who was going to win because we were all pretty close. So that was so that we were actually racing towards the end. And yeah.
So what was the toughest part of the race last year as a pro racer?
Like I said, the South Fork coming home, and then between Koyuk, Buckland to Selawik, I think it took us 8 or 9 hours of doing 10 to 25 miles an hour because it was blowing 50 miles an hour. It was a ground storm. It was white. You could probably see 30 feet, and then beyond that, it was pitch white the whole time. So you just stare at your GPS and you follow a line. Once in a while, you'll come across the tripods that they mark the trail with, but and it's so confusing because you see a tripod and you're like, oh, there it is, and your mind wants to keep going straight, but really the trail is going this way, so the tripod should have been, you're going this way, not towards it. So I was constantly all over the place.
And this is just wide open. It's not like following a road or a fence line.
Nothing.
Or
I mean, it would be like it would be here in Minnesota where it's just flat and it's just completely white. And you'd see a little bit of tundra sticking out here and there. Once in a while you get to like, I don't know, a creek crossing or something, and it's just hollow snow. There's no bottom to it, and you just get these, I guess, willow bushes that just grow out of it. So God help you if you stop it. You just basically got to power through it. One of the guys got stuck, and you're walking back to waist deep, and these sleds weigh about 800 pounds. So to pull them, it's not 1, 2, 3 pulling the mountain sleds out. It's 1, 2, 3, and it moves a couple inches.
Yeah, a race sled or a trail sled, they don't jump out of a hole like that.
No, with the little itty bitty, it's like moving the Titanic.
So, what is your mind doing? Like, if you're out there, you're talking hours across this blinding crossing snow, no visibility, watching GPS. Like, do you find your mind like, I need to do this when I get home, like fix my garage or do something?
You're so focused. Like literally, I was scared. At one point, I stopped and I walked back to the father, Kris, that was behind me. I was like, "Hey, I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm a little freaked out. I'm pretty scared. I'm following this GPS line. Do you have the same line?" He's like, "Yep, we're on the same line. Just stay course." And yeah, and so we went. And the crazy part was we left Buckland, and you can. And each year they switch it up. You can go left to go to Kotzebue, and then you come around and make the loop, and then go to Nome, or you can go right and then loop around and make Kotzebue and then go to Nome. Well, the ambassador class, we went to the left. As the pro last year, we were supposed to go to the right. Well, as I was going, I had a brain fart and following the GPS, but the wrong GPS line, and I went left, and the three guys were behind me. So it was myself, Austin Carroll, which is my partner this year, and then his dad, and then my partner. And as I'm going, Kris had stopped to look at his GPS, and he didn't tell me. So Austin and I kept going, and then after a while, Austin didn't see his dad, so he stopped. I kept going, not knowing they all stopped. And when I stopped and looked back, it was pitch white. And that feeling was the most eerie feeling in my life, like completely helpless. And so I was like, well, I'll just turn around and go back. But if I'm facing this way and it's so white out and the ground's as hard as the table. So when I turned around to go back, I couldn't see my tracks. So I looked at my GPS line, but when I had turned around, I made a whole 360 degrees. So I turned all the way around, not even knowing. So I was like, okay, I'm on my GPS. Well, I started following it. And then I thought, am I going towards Kotzebue or am I going back to where they were? And I zoomed out, and I was going back towards Kotzebue. So I turned back around, and I just started following the GPS line. And, I keep my GPS. I was keeping it at like, I think 75 feet, 25 feet, somewhere in there. So you couldn't see more than 25, 30 feet. So I could have passed right by him. And eventually, I ran into him just by pure luck.
So it's not like Ride Command where you can see the group ride?
Nope.
Haven't got that far yet? Or is that even allowed?
This year it will be. You can get it on the race sled this year, but last year you couldn't. And my GPS was different than my partner's.
Oh.
And then the other team, theirs were different. And our radios weren't working.
Jeez. So what else happened on that race? Like, I'm sure everything just went perfectly smooth.
Oh, there was creek crossings. My partner, I jumped one, and he went to go through it, and it was just as wide as a sled, perfectly wide, and he went too slow and basically just plunged the sled right in the water. There was another team there that they broke an A-arm because they came around the corner too fast, smoked an A-arm. So they were like, we'll help you if you help us, and their sled was stuck, so they helped us pull it out. Let's see, stuck.
You're on the clock when that happens,
yes.
Right?
So you're on the clock until you get to a checkpoint. When you get to a checkpoint, and that's where you're staying, like McGrath is a checkpoint, you say time, and they stop the officials will stop your time right there. You can't touch your sled. Like if you forget your cell phone, or your toothbrush, or your overnight bag, I think it's 30 minutes they add to it, or maybe it's an hour. If you touch your sled, it's an automatic hour they add to it. You can't work on your sled unless you're on the clock. If you're going from checkpoint to checkpoint, you can work on your clock. You can work on your sled. You can, off the clock, you can get your tools ready. You can get parts ready. You can look at the sled, but you can't touch it.
So when you roll into a checkpoint, like for the night,
yeah.
What do you do? Like, you're carrying all your stuff, right?
Yeah, you got to carry your sleeping bag, your overnight bag. I think 2 sets of thermals, extra set of gloves, 2 extra sets of socks, a laser, another way to start fire. I can't remember. And tools. I think 5 pounds of tools, 150 feet, I think, of 6,000-pound rope or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but you have to have all that. And your overnight bag is basically toothbrush, some underarm deodorant, and that's about it. So when you come into a checkpoint, you have that easy accessible. You grab that, you grab your GPS, and you say time. That's it.
So you're trying to hurry and do
as
that.
fast as you can.
When do you fill up? When do you refuel and pull over?
The next morning they let you fill up, and then actually you're on the clock when you fill up. Sorry.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. You're on the clock doing that.
They say 3, 2, 1, go. You start your sled. You pack all your stuff on your sled so you're warming up, and then basically you kind of just idle it because it's so cold. You just kind of brim, 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 and go around. You fill it up with oil. Hopefully your temperature is nice and warm by then. And then balls to the wall until the next checkpoint, and you're just on the sled.
So have you had one of those penalties where you forgot something or you touched
No.
your sled or
Nothing?
Does that happen very often?
Not that I know of. Everybody's pretty. I mean, you watch the pros come in, and they're literally coming in. The sled's still moving. They're pulling stuff off, and they're jumping off the sled, and the sled's all time. I mean, they're that fast.
Oh man! So what does it come down to? Like who won this last year, and by what margin?
Oh, it was Barber and no. God, I can't remember his name. I always forget. It was close. Like, it was really close. I can't remember I always forget what their names were. Maybe it was Barber. Yeah, Google that up real quick, Ryan.
I'll try to find all
If you Google it, you're going to probably get me, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's all that's coming up is Smasher.
But they're just fast. Everything is so meticulous and planned, and they know.
I got no internet here.
Oh.
So
yeah. So, anyways, I know that they were close. We all said that it was going to be. It came down to I know that Mike Morgan and Bradley finished third. I can see their faces, but
yeah, Barber.
Yeah, Barber
and Brett.
Yes, Lapson. Lappin. Yep.
Lappin. Okay.
Two really cool guys. Like, I'd never met them. All the top teams were super cool. Everybody on the race was beyond helpful, giving you advice. Just keep going. You're good. I lost my thumbnail and both pinky nails on my last Iron Dog. What else do we have? I ate.
Okay. Well, wait a minute. Go back to that part. How?
Well, the pinkies and the thumb, I think, was holding on so tight, and then keeping your hands at a certain position for so long. You're not getting blood to them, and I think that's how they ended up how I lost it. Yeah, and on the way back, my thumb was massive, and the nail was peeling off, and it was all red and looked infected. It was miserable. It hurt a lot, but it was really fun.
No, I don't think fun.
No?
I mean, yeah. So yeah, it's like type A fun, right? Like there's three types of fun.
Yeah.
And the one that is painful and causes you a lot of grief and is just absolutely miserable. That's the most memorable.
Yes.
So you're obviously the type A.
Type A.
Fun haver.
It's just worth it.
Yeah.
What else do we have? I crashed 3 times, and that was not fun.
Okay, take us through. You can't just gloss over crashing 3 times.
I was on my way to Nome. I was leading. Last time I looked down, it was 65 miles an hour, and I was going up a hill, and I was looking back to make sure my partner and the other 2 guys were behind me.
Was it like during the day?
No, it was at night. And you could see that, with the auxiliary lights and stuff, you could tell it was a hill. And I looked back, and as I was coming to look back around, my rear end had come to my left. And everybody said, if you start tail swapping, don't let off the throttle. Get back on the throttle. Well, it came around so far that when it hit, the sled shot out that way, and I kept going that way. And as I was going, I remember tucking, and I could just see my headlight. And then it wrecked, and then Austin Carroll, he was behind me, and he was like, "Oh my God, are you all right, Smasher?" And I jumped up, and I was like, "I'm good." And as my sled was laying outside, belly up towards me, I was like, "Oh, please." Rolled it over. All it did was push my handlebars forward, and it cracked my windshield. I mean, I got super lucky. I don't know how. Like, the snow gods love me. I got lucky there. And then when you get to Nome, you put them in a shop, and you're there for a day and a half. And you're there for a day and a half, and you get to work on your sled, and you can you can pick another partner, another team to help you, and you get to work. And so however long it takes you to fix stuff on your sled, they add that time to you. So we are only working on our sleds 15 minutes. I think I had to fix my light, my windshield. My partner needed new ski rubber, and we tightened a couple of bolts. And other than that,
What parts are you carrying with you?
you carry extra belt, extra clutch springs, torsion springs, A-arms, and just other knickknacks of bolts, nuts, washers, springs for the exhaust, just anything. Like this year, I'm going to carry everything for the rear suspension. I will have every bolt, every bolt and nut.
No wonder your sleds are so heavy.
Oh, yeah. But when you're out in the middle of nowhere, so we broke down. So on the way back, we were leaving Unically, and Eric and I were in second place, for meaning that we were the second team that day. Not really in second place, but we were the second team going through. And it was a beautiful day, gorgeous. And we're going through the flats and the tundra, just hauling the mail. Great day. And then Eric broke a torsion spring. Well, we didn't have another one because we had given it to another team, and so we didn't have one on us.
But at one point, you were packing a torsion spring.
Yeah. And that cost us some time right there. So we ended up getting into Koyuk, and right before Koyuk, I call it the H bracket. A lot of people call it the H brackets, where your rear shock at the bottom mounts it to the skid, and a bolt had wiggled out and it broke the other side of the H bracket, so my shock was digging into my track. So we got there. We called.
Big deal.
No, and you're tired. It was dusk, so it was probably around 5:00, 5:30. And so we called time. Local villager gave us a ride to her house. She had macaroni salad and some stew and bread, and they fed us. And we got our what we were going to do. And we found her brother actually had his broke down sled outside, so he let us take parts off it. So we got a torsion spring off of him, an H bracket, a bolt, and everything to fix my sled. So we went back, and of course, by now it's 7:30 at night. It's cold. My thumb is swollen. It's kind of snowing a little bit. We're the last team. All the other teams, we went from second team in to last. All the other teams had gone through. So
were you penalized for, or you were still on the clock during all this?
No.
What do you mean you called time?
We called time at 5:30 or whatever, so we were off the clock, and we went and ate at the house. So we called the 2-hour layover. So we declared 2 hours. So we had 2 hours just to sit off the clock. So we could take parts off the other sled, and that's where we messed up also, is we took too long eating and figuring out what we were doing. So we should have declared a 3-hour layover, and would give us an extra hour. So we could take parts off another sled off the clock, but what ended up happening is we ran out of time, so we were actually working on the other sled, taking parts off, and then went to our sled. So we lost.
So the clock started, and you're still stealing parts off the other guys.
Yep. Yeah. So
did you get parts back to that dude?
Yeah. We kept a list. We wrote it down in our phones, and then Eric sent him all the parts and some extra stuff for the kid helping us out. Huh. So we fixed the sleds, and that took us, 2 hours, hour. It was miserable. The sled's full of ice. The bolt that we got off the other sled was a XCR, so the bolt didn't fit. And by slim chance, Eric found a grade 8 bolt? So it wasn't the right bolt and nut, but it fit. And we were like, please just make it. And so we put it in, and we still had 150 miles to go. So we left there at 9 o'clock at night, and we went all the way to Galena. And then Eric wanted to stay in Galena, and there were some other teams there, but the checkers had told us there was a storm coming in. So it was 11 o'clock at night when we pulled into Galena. You're tired. We just wasted a bunch of time. You just want to get some sleep. And it was 50 miles to Ruby. And I was like, let's just go to Ruby tonight. And it was dark out, so you could, and we're going down the Yukon. The Yukon's just massive river. It's huge. It's like a freeway for most of it. You do get some ice chunks. So anyways, we took off down the Yukon. I finally got him talked into it, and we headed down, and we made it there in an hour and, 9 minutes or something. Put us there at 1 a.m., and then we slept there from 1 a.m. at one of the villagers' homes, from 1 a.m. to, 7. Got up the next morning. It had stormed, and it was storming, so you couldn't see. It was nasty. So all the other teams were coming down, and sure enough, you had one team that wrecked. mangled up their sled pretty good. So that was a good call for us to have done that. And then from Ruby to Portman, it had snowed. So the top teams like Chris Olds and Morgan and Lamp and those guys, they were all fighting. In the deeper the snow, the slower they would go. So nobody wanted to break trail. And so they were like, hey, Mr. Boondocker Mountain Man, why don't you take off? And once again, we took off, and it ended up being one of the greatest. It was 90 miles of just – it went from hard snow to Poor Man, and then from Poor Man to Ophir, we had about 2 feet of fresh snow.
And you're leading this point?
Yeah.
So do you want to be out front leading?
I did, because talking to Chris Olds later, you get sleds that go through there, and the snow is kind of – it just packs down, and it just makes it just moguls, and it's miserable. Like, you can't – you're just beating your sled and yourself up going that fast in the way that those guys go.
How fast are you going, like on that stretch? Like as fast as that cycle goes?
Yeah, as fast as I could go, I was going, but it was nice and smooth for me, I didn't have to worry about bottoming out, breaking springs, because it's just all – it's powder. You just go and we made it to, and we were supposed to. So there I think it's called the Sunoco River, and it had a lot of overflow on it. And we were told to stay off it, and we were allowed to follow the Iditarod Trail, which kept us off the river. And so I had talked to the checker at Portman, and he kind of explained it to me. But there's no street signs or anything. I'm just following a GPS sign, and you're going, and the next thing I know, we're on the river, and there's brown spots. That means there's overflow, and it's slush. And for about 15 minutes, I was just holding that sled to the bar, just going. I was so scared and nervous. I just kept looking back to make sure Eric was behind me. And you're going around these corners, and those sleds do not, they don't get up on edge super easy. And you'd be going around the corners just hanging on, trying to get it over and around the corner, stay away from the slush and the brown water. And we did that for like 15 minutes, and we finally stopped. We're looking at our GPS because my gas light was almost on. Then another team finally showed up, and we had them lead in front of us to break trail.
They came down to the river with you?
Yeah, they saw my tracks, our tracks, and they followed us. Everybody started following it. And then, of course, and then his team started passing us because we were low on fuel, and then my partner got stuck twice. So a couple more teams came up, and I don't know if you've ever followed in 2 feet of powder that's slush. It's like riding a boat, and it's the scariest, freakiest thing, because you don't know whether to get out of their tracks, because then you just slow down, or you stay in their tracks. But when they don't ride and they're crossing, it just makes waves for you.
Are you packing any fuel?
Yes, you have 2 auxiliary fuel tanks, or you have 1, and I had 2, and so I had burnt through. I came into Ophir on a yellow light. I was out of fuel.
Well, you used all the stuff you were carrying and
everything
because you were breaking trail.
Yeah. And probably too much to the bar. I mean, I probably should have laid off it a little bit. But.
So what benefit did you being like a deep snow mountain rider and all of your experience doing all the crazy stuff you do for boondockers, like what did that bring to the table as racing Iron Dog?
Well, that was my second year, and I have never been stuck on the Iron Dog. Not one time. Not one time have I been stuck.
Never had to wave a dude down for a ski pole.
Never. Not one time. My partner got stuck quite a few times, but he's from here, so he's a Flatlander. So I think it played a big part. I mean, a huge part. I really do. I think it plays a lot in it. There was a couple of hills. We were the last one to go through the first day, and there was bomb holes everywhere, just huge bomb holes. And it wasn't anything big, but these sleds don't go like a mountain sled, and they don't turn as well. I mean, they're hard to ride. Especially when you got to get them, up on edge and stuff. At least in my opinion, I think it's a lot harder.
So what's your objective for this year?
Top 10. I want a top 10. While my dad's still on this earth, I want him to see me get a top 10. That's my goal. Finish in top 10. We got 14th last year. Be racing it with Austin Carroll. Like I said, he's 18. He's from Fairbanks. Top 10 is anything above 10 and better. I want that. They pay out to the 10th place. They give out these great big cardboard checks, and I want that Happy Gilmore check to put in my garage.
Happy Gilmore.
I want that check.
So who helps you make this happen? Like, how are you pulling this off?
Whew. My wife is huge in this. My kids, but my wife lets me do it, and she worries. But I've come back. I've come back again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every
You just
time.
might need help getting your boots off.
Oh, when we finished, yeah, I was hurting. I just tore my meniscus in November, and the race started in February, and so I had meniscus surgery to fix that, and so yeah.
Jeez, that's brutal. Well, man, my hat's off to you because way back in the 90s, like I used to race cross country just in Idaho when RMXCRC was around. And I was like, yeah, this ain't for me. Like it's fun, but to see you go out and do Iron Dog like this and do it year after year and be successful at it and like elevate yourself. I mean, I know these guys, the Alkstads and Barbers, like these guys that do it really well and competitively and win year after year. They don't get the recognition they deserve. This is a brutal event.
No, the top 10 teams are incredible. I mean, most of these guys have done it multiple times, and it sounds dumb to say they've memorized a lot of the course, but they just know it. Like Ackelstead and Nick and Tyler came up on me one time, and I moved out of their way. And when they went by me, I thought I was moving probably 50. They went blowing by me, and so I think I'd asked one of them at one checkpoint, how are you following him? And he just said he looks at his GPS. But, you still got creeks. You got, like little dips in some of the roads that you're on because you do follow some roads, a lot, like old mining roads. And there's, little watershed things that go through there, and there's bumps and culverts. And, I mean, I remember coming through one creek crossing. It was in the trees, and there was a bogey wheel. I was like, what the? And they just blow right through them. You come around a corner, and you'd see, like, these alder bushes, and they just smoke them like they'd missed the corner. You just see bark and parts everywhere. But that's how they win.
Man.
I mean, I followed Mike Morgan, and I'll tell you this one last story. So on the way back, it had snowed over. Oh my gosh, Ptarmigan Pass, I think is what they call it. And and it was right after. It was right after the last checkpoint on the South Fork, and so they were once again, hey, Mountain Man, go break us a trail. And I was like, okay, fair enough. And the South Fork winds, and it's this huge canyon in between two mountains, and it's nasty. And there was open water. And I was like, okay, well, you can't follow the trail. And they're like, well, you just got to make your way. So Eric and I took off, and I couldn't find a way across this one section. It was probably, 300 feet long. And it was just a river, and it snaked around and went by, and it was moving at a pretty good clip. And I was telling Eric, man, I don't want to skip across that and get us struck on a little island and then be, screwed. So I was like, we got to go back. And so as we were going back, this other team, Kim and his partner came up, and I was like, well, let's follow them. And he was going pretty gung-ho. Like, he was pew, pew, pew. So I was like, all right, we'll follow him. And he was riding on the side of the riverbank looking up the river, and there's 4-inch minus river rock with just a little bit of snow on it. So we all know that the skis are sticking to it. And all of a sudden he dipped down and he hit the water, bounced once, bounced twice, sunk. And then saw him standing on a sled. He jumped off his sled. We got the rope. We threw it to him. He swam out, and he was like, I'm good. You guys take off. So we went back to that checkpoint that we were just at, which was like 2 miles. And Mike Morgan and Bradley were getting ready to go. And I was like, man, I can't find, I'm not going up it. Sorry, I just can't. So Morgan was like, you can follow us. You follow us. But if you lose us, I will not wait. They're going for, first place, second place, third place. So him and Bradley take off, and we just tailed them. And Morgan it was cool to watch him because he was very calculated in everything he did. There was no risk. He knew what he was doing. And when he came to that long river crossing, man, he just lined up and he was gone. So you just put it to the bar and just start water skipping. And
it's incredible. All right, well, good luck to you this year. Seriously.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Looking forward to hearing more stories about it. We'll come back this time next year and hear all the crazy stories.
Hopefully I've got that top 10.
Iron Dog 2025.
Yes.
With the Happy Gilmore check.
Yes, with the Happy Gilmore.
Bring the Happy Gilmore check.
To Heydays?
Yeah.
I should, because
we'll put it on a little pedestal right here.
If I get a top 10 in that check, it's coming with me to Heydays. All right. I will brag about that.
You will walk up and down every aisle.
Yeah, I'll be like,
who's helping you do this? How are you getting this race done, and who's supporting you with all this?
Well, I've got quite a few. Start off with Climb, Arctic FX, Voke, SLP, Truck Boss, Oxbow, Sledson, Of course, Snow West. My wife, can't forget the wife. Polaris. And then I got Nick's Demo out of Reno, Nevada. Dave Napier, which is out of Florida now, was a big supporter of Boondockers. He's now helped me. Greg Dario out of Colorado. Kobe Off-Roads, which is in Idaho. Tide Table Cafe, which is a local coffee shop in Dillingham, Alaska, where I grew up. Reno Rock here in town. And then my brother, One Call Hall, Wade Services. And then the buddy that's taking care of me with all my all my injuries was Nevada PT here in Reno, Nevada. Those are all the people that help and support me and get me through this race.
Well, you got a lot of energies too, and you need them for this stuff.
I know. I better keep it going too.
All right. Kris Kaltenbacher, Smasher. Find him on Instagram. Smasher14?
Yep.
Smasher14. All right. Thanks, man. We'll chat with you later.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, buddy.
Yep.